Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. Once again, I am your non-host, Michael Simon from Macworld, joined by Ken Mingus from Computer World. And as you probably guessed, today we're talking about Apple's Far Out event. It will take place on Wednesday, September
Yep.
7th at 10 a.m. Pacific, a little earlier than usual. Usually it's in the teens. It's usually the week after Labor
Should
Day.
have normally been the 13th, right? That would be the common expectation for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be supply chain stuff. It could be just that they wanted to do it differently. It could be that they're doing it now and the phones won't go on sale for 3 weeks. Like we don't know exactly what the
Yeah.
situation is, but we're working under the presumption that Wednesday event, Friday pre-orders, following Friday, the phones go on sale or the products go on sale.
Which if
Um,
true, you could have your new phone by September 16th.
yeah, and that also for Apple
They
means
can book
they get an
revenue.
extra week of quarterly sales, which
Yeah.
could, maybe that's part of it. Like, who knows? Apple does things. A week of Apple sales is a lot. We're talking about
Especially
iPhones,
right up at the start of as soon as they're released.
right? So usually they come out the 25th to 24th, something like that. So you don't have that, like there's not much lead time there. So whatever the reason is, it's earlier and it's also on a strange day. Usually it's Tuesday, but because Monday is Labor Day in the U.S., they give it an extra day, so it's on Wednesday.
Do we have any idea what the whole far out thing is all about?
I mean, who
Usually
knows?
you try to read the tea leaves
Yeah,
at the invite, and sometimes
sure.
it's very clear. You
I
can,
tell you what it should
it's
be.
not Periscope
Right.
cameras,
That's
so
that's what it should be, but
yeah.
it's not, or at least based unless they throw us a complete surprise.
I think by
There's
now.
no rumors that Apple has sourced periscope lenses for this
Yeah.
iPhone, so that's probably not it. The the prevailing rumor is that far out refers to astrophotography,
Okay.
and that's been on the Pixel and the Galaxy phones for a little bit. And basically, it means you can point your iPhone at the sky and take, relatively decent night sky photos.
Okay.
Now, on some of those other phones, you need like a whole getup to create anything that's decent. Like you need a, a tripod and you need to have it on a level ground and the conditions to be perfect. So, if Apple can do that literally where you just point your phone up and you snap a picture and you get like decent constellation stuff like that'd be cool.
Well,
So
the assumption is what, 48 megapixel camera in the Pro
that's
model?
yeah, so that's the new camera hardware based on the rumors for the back camera. They say the iPhone 12 will still have two lenses, wide and ultra wide, so no telephoto there. Same 12 megapixels for those two phones. And for the Pro models, that main wide lens, which is the one, when you open your camera app and snap it, that's the one it uses,
Yeah.
will be 48 megapixels. What they're doing is the same thing that Samsung and other phones do. It's called pixel binning.
Yeah.
So they're splicing things together, and it'll be a big file, and you can turn it off if you want. But that'll lead to incredibly detailed shots in the right lighting. Like nighttime shots will be different, and low light, of course, is still going to struggle a little bit, and they'll have to use some computational stuff. But if you're just taking like a sunny day landscape shot, like you'll get real rich detail. File size will be bigger, but still not enough where you're going to have to worry about storage on your phone.
It's interesting given that last year's camera improvement was the macro.
Yeah.
Then I guess in that sense, it makes sense that, okay, they've gone up close and personal with the macro photography. Now Apple goes the other direction. And that sets them up for the periscope lens maybe next year, for
Maybe
you.
next year. Yeah. The other question is, does macro come to the iPhone 14 non-Pro models? Because
Mhm.
right now that macro, which I think is a real unsung feature on those phones, like it's a great feature to have. Like I'm going to venture that most people don't even realize that they have it on their phone because it's not something that Apple really pushes much, but it's great. And it's only on the Pro model, so I wonder if it now comes to the iPhone 14 as like same thing with photographic style. I think that's on the 13, but there are some features that are just for the Pro, and they'll like a year later they'll bring them to the non-Pro models as a kind of a semi upgrade for
Well,
those phones.
isn't also sort of one of the underlying themes, I guess, maybe that's not the right word, but the whole idea that Apple's going to try to do more to diverge
Yeah.
the lines this year.
Yeah,
aside
well,
rumored
so
price increase on the
there's a
Pro.
lot that the Pro phone's getting. So for starters, the two lines are going to have the exact same size phones. 6.1 inch like we have now. And instead of the iPhone mini, which is 5.4 inches, that's going away because apparently it didn't sell well. They're going to come out with a 6.7 inch non-Pro model. So they'll be the same, 6.1, 6.1, 6.7, 6.7. I had assumed, along with everybody else, that phone would be called the iPhone 14 Max.
Yeah.
Rumors this week, and this makes a ton of sense, is that it's going to be the iPhone 14 Plus, which is what they used to use way back with the iPhone 8.
Yeah.
iPhone 8,
that.
iPhone 8
That's right.
Plus, iPhone 7, iPhone 7 Plus, iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus. So that's the rumor, which makes sense. So not only are they separating it with features, they're also separating with name. So you got the iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Pro, iPhone 14 Plus, iPhone 14 Pro Max. So they're different in both name and in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rumor. I think that makes a lot of sense by the name. I think the size also makes a lot of sense. Like people didn't really love that mini phone for whatever reason. The battery was a little bit not great, and I just think people who want or not all, most people who want a small phone also want a cheap phone. Like I think they kind of go hand in hand. So there's rumors that the iPhone SE in a year or two is gonna adopt like the iPhone XR stylings with Face ID and be like a little bit more modern rather than the home button. But Apple won't break down the sales, and they never do. But I bet the iPhone SE sells better than the iPhone 12 mini. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because people who want a small phone also want a phone that costs $400 or $500. The mini started at $600 and $700. Is it $700 or $600? Is it $699 or is this?
I thought it was $699.
It might be $700. Yeah, maybe you're right. Anyway, that's a lot of phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money for a small phone. So I think it makes sense to go the other direction. It also means prices are going up. So you're taking away that $699 model. $799 is not a starting point, or $829 without the carrier deals.
Yeah.
So the iPhone 14 Plus, maybe $899, maybe $849, maybe $999. We're not sure, but definitely on the higher end. It's $200 plus more than the mini. So that whole average selling price goes up. And they're saying that the iPhone 14 Pro Max, am I getting that right? Yeah.
Yep.
The Pro and the Pro Max, there's too many names swimming in my head, are going to go up by $100 across the board. So that'll start at $1099 and $1199 and then go up with storage.
A couple of rumors I had seen this week, and I'm not quite sure where this one came from, but that there might actually be a slight price drop for just the basic iPhone 14, but you would see the price increases for the Pro and the Pro Max. Did you see that? I'm not quite sure what the rationale was, but it was someone who supposedly, was keeping tabs on the supply chain. Did you see anything along those lines?
Storage you're talking about?
No. That was the second rumor I wanted to ask you about. But I'd seen, we've been under the assumption that there'll be a price increase, and certainly I think for the Pro models, that's a given. The question was, would there be a price increase for the regular iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, or would there maybe even be a slight decrease there so Apple could sort of say we're going up on the Pro, again, to diverge the lines a tad bit more?
I mean, I don't think I've seen a rumor about a decrease. Apple doesn't usually decrease its prices.
Yeah, it struck me as.
I'd be surprised if
Okay.
it went from $799 to $749 or $699.
Something like that,
yeah. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it's a similar phone to
Remember,
make, maybe they can.
The 14 is still using the old A15 chip, So it's not
Allegedly, yeah.
allegedly, yeah, that's true. We say this as if we know these things, but
So
again,
they,
according to all the
well,
rumors.
I mean, just to not get off of pricing yet,
Yeah.
presumably the iPhone 13 will get $100 price cut. That's what they've been doing. Now, does the iPhone 13 mini stay around? Does the iPhone 12 mini stay around? We don't know.
Yeah.
If they're not making a new one, maybe they get rid of those, and it's the iPhone 13, the iPhone 12. So that would be $699, $599. Then the iPhone SE is $399. I don't know. I'd be surprised to see a price cut.
Okay.
Apple goes up, not down.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, I suppose we'll see.
Okay. The other rumor, and you already mentioned this, was the idea that maybe Apple would start the storage on these at 256 rather than 128.
Yeah.
And I wonder, given, it's certainly for, well, I think the Pro models already start at 256, don't they? Or can you
everything's 128 right
Okay.
now.
Okay. I would think then if you're going to be looking at, more photography, larger photo files, maybe that's one way to sort of, and also a price increase. You kind of sweeten the deal by starting it at 256.
I mean, that's what Apple charges for that right now, $100 more. That would also surprise me. That's not Apple's MO. They don't charge more and then give you more usually. At least not obviously. Like you're obviously getting a better phone. But I mean, we'll see. 256 is that's a lot of storage to start with.
Yeah, I've been at 256 for years.
I mean, Apple, the MacBook Air starts at 256.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they ship an entry-level iPhone with that much storage.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see. I think you're going to get 128 and you got to pay $100 more for it. That's what I think.
But that's the thought of the week before an Apple event.
Yeah.
Rumors are flying, and
Sure.
Some of them make sense, a lot of them don't.
There's been one trend force is they keep saying that it's going to start at 256. No one else has corroborated that rumor, and I would assume something got lost in translation there, but maybe not. I mean, it would be great. I don't need it. Let me see. I have the 128 version. I guarantee I'm not even halfway filled.
I checked because, planning ahead in case I want to get a new phone next week or the week after. And I've got a 256 and I've never filled it up.
Oh, I have 115. I'm actually pretty close. I have 15.6 gigs of 128 gigabyte used. So, hey, maybe I should get that 256 model.
Well, I've got 256 and I've got 126 available. I could almost get away with a 128,
it's close.
But it would be, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I have a bunch of stuff on here I can get rid of, but I don't want to have to do that. Like, that's just tedious.
No, you don't want to mess
but
with
I'm closer than I thought. I thought I'd be under 100. That's
time for an upgrade.
Maybe so.
Time for an upgrade. All right, so we've talked about pricing, we've talked about storage, we've talked about the different sizes and the differentiation in the line. Always on display. That's only a pro.
Yeah.
feature.
So the Pro's getting a lot of things that the non-Pro
Again,
isn't. So yeah, we'll start with the display.
Yeah.
The notch is going away on the Pro. I'm pretty certain to say that's basically confirmed. So what we're going to get is, all right, so this is another one that this week changed. A little hole for the selfie camera. If you've ever seen an Android phone, you know what that looks like. And then like a little pill-shaped overlay thing next to it for the rest of the TrueDepth Face ID stuff that needs to be visible and can't go into the screen. Now, we thought that was going to look like, a hole in a pill, which always seemed kind of like, a little un-Apple-like.
Yeah.
So now what the rumors say is Apple is going to black out the space between those sensors because it's an OLED screen. They can do that.
Yeah.
And so it'll look like one long continuous strip.
Like a slot almost.
Yeah. Not like smaller than the notch, but
right.
like a pill-shaped little strip
slot
at the top of the phone.
Yeah.
So you're not gaining any space, not that you were anyway. So the screen won't go around the sensors. It'll go around the whole block of sensors. And that middle space is where Apple's going to put the microphone and the camera identification buttons. Like they're like little orange and green dots right now.
Yeah.
So like if the microphone's on, it
You'll
lets
know.
you know, like, hey, like, this app is using your microphone. Usually that like you're okay with that. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes there's an app that's using it that's not supposed to. So they let you know. It's a privacy thing. So that's going to go in the middle between the sensors, which is really like right in front of your face, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
They're, don't worry, it's usually off unless you're making a FaceTime call or something. And so it'll look like a long strip. It's not quite as long as the notch is, but you're not going to really get much space up there in the status bar than you have now. It's very similar. The only difference is the screen kind of flows around the top
Mm-hmm.
of the phone rather than having that the notch kind of come down from the top. But that's a change, and that's not coming to the iPhone 14. The iPhone 14 will look the same.
Has a notch.
It's going to have the notch, and it's going to be the same size as this year, it seems. So that's a big change for Apple. Since the iPhone has come out in 2007, we're talking 15 generations now. They've looked the same. They've had, with the exception of larger and smaller.
Yeah.
They've had the same physical specs and the same, like when you pick them up, they're the same. This is going to look different. The iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro next to each other in the store when the screens on, they're going to look different. So that's a big change for Apple. It's like if you bought a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air, and the Pro had a little strip and the Air had a notch. They're really differentiating the two lines visually now on top of everything else that the Pro phone is getting.
Yeah.
So they're going to look different.
I'm just going to ask in terms of the slot or whatever the pill-shaped thing.
I'm going to call it the camera bar.
Camera bar. Okay, good. That doesn't really, you won't notice that like if you've got the always-on display on the Pro models, really, because it'll be sort of blacked out.
All right.
Right?
So the always-on displays that's another new feature coming in. If you've ever used an Android phone, you know what that looks like. When the phone's off, right now, when the phone is off,
it's black.
You get, that. Nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. When it's on a nightstand, when it's on a stand, when it's in your desk, it's the single most annoying iPhone thing, because particularly in the middle of the night.
I knew you were going to go there.
That's when it is.
That's your go-to complaint.
Well, because you look over, I have a little stand like most people do. It's charging. I look over and I have to because the clock is way across the room. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see it.
Yeah.
And I want to know what time it is. Is it 3 a.m? Is it 5 a.m? That's I maybe I don't need to know, but I would like to. And I have to reach over and tap the double tap the phone, and it's annoying, and it happens to me like 5 times a week.
Okay.
When it's sitting on a desk, I glance over on it. I got nothing.
Yeah.
It's nice to have an always on display, which will show time. It'll show the date. It'll show probably the widgets that are on the new lock screen. Yeah. Maybe notifications, things like that, without having to turn the whole display on. And for one, light up your whole room. But for two, just having to do it. You could look over and there it is. So that's coming to the Pro, another Pro feature that's not coming to the non-Pro models, or so we think. The question is ProMotion. I'm going to guess that stays a Pro feature. That's the 120 hertz refresh.
Yeah.
The faster displays. There was rumors last year that it was going to come to the Pros first and then trickle down to the iPhone 14 this year. I don't think so. I think it's going to stay a Pro feature. The ProMotion, MacBook Pro, iPad Pro, iPhone Pro. It's absolutely a Pro feature. It's not something that Apple slowly brings. So I think that ProMotion, OLED, always on, is going to be the iPhone 14 Pro only feature forever. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe always on comes to the lower ones in a year or two. Not ProMotion.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. All right.
So all right, let's go to more changes. Around the back, camera, same thing. 3 lenses on the Pro, 2 lenses on the non-Pro. Based on the schematics and the renders, it's a big camera bump on the Pro. It's going to be big.
By big, do we mean the
Both.
size or depth? Both. Okay.
Yeah. Bigger size-wise, and deeper bump-wise. So yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to be heavy. Like they're kind of heavy now.
Mm-hmm.
Like particularly the Max. Like it's a little top heavy.
Yeah.
And I guess my guess is that's going to become even more so with these phones. Same thing, telephoto. I I'm assuming still 3x. We haven't heard anything to suggest otherwise. That 48 megapixel wide lens and then an ultra wide, 12 megapixel ultra wide. There'll be new features, I'm sure. We haven't heard much about that. I think astrophotography is going to be the one, probably on both phones.
Mhm.
If they're pinning the event on this feature with the stars and stuff, I think that'll be a feature that, because they both do night mode, it'll be a feature on the wide camera probably. A lot of it done processing, not doesn't really need a better lens or a better camera to do it. So my guess is it'll be on both phones. On the Pro, you might get a little bit crisper, a little bit clearer because of that 48 megapixel thing and the pixel bing and all that stuff that they're doing. But I think that it'll be both. I mean, it's a neat feature. I never really used it on the Pixel outside of trying it out. But I think
I would use it.
People care. Yeah, I think people care about that.
I mean, one of the complaints I guess I have about the iPhone 13 is if you want to get when there was the lunar eclipse a few months back, and just taking your phone and trying to get the contrast, that the moon is so bright, the sky is so dark, and it's just you wind up with crappy pictures.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, Zoom absolutely needs to come. Better Zoom, good Zoom needs to come to the iPhone. That has to be next year.
Yeah.
Because they're very lagging behind everyone else right now in that department. And I think that's probably the number one thing that people do is they're sitting far away. They're out of, I was at a baseball game last week and I tried and you get nothing. You gotta, you get a little bit closer.
You mean using the 3x zoom or using the digital zoom?
I'm both. But okay. They needs to be like a 6 or 8 or 10x optical zoom, and a 30x decent, really good digital zoom. That has to happen soon. And rumors are that it'll be the iPhone 15. So, but that's not happening now. The telephoto I assume is going to be the same, 3x, and what is it, 15x? But don't go there.
Don't ever do that unless you want a digital
maybe. Maybe 8 or 10 if you really have to, but even that's not so great.
Yeah, by the time you get it, you just try to get closer to whatever you're photographing. Okay, well, I mean, anything else iPhone related before we move on to whatever else is coming up?
Yeah, quickly, the chip, A16 chip, comes out every year. Apple this year reportedly will only have that in the Pro. So the iPhone 14 might get the Pro chip this year. So this year, the A15 chip has 4 GPU cores in the iPhone 14 and 5 GPU cores in the iPhone 14 Pro models. Slightly faster graphics. There's some rumors that the 14 is going to get that version, so a little bit better than the 13, but not the A16. That's going to all be Pro. That's another feature that Apple is going to differentiate the lines, and so. Apple's really pushing that Pro hard this year, which is, one of the reasons why it's more expensive. So if you don't like spending $1,000 on your iPhone, you might want to consider it this year.
Oh, yeah. Also, more RAM in the Pro models. Did I see that?
I mean, I don't know. It has 6 now. Apple will only give more RAM if they have to.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not a feature that they like. Samsung advertises at 12 gigs of RAM. Apple's not going to do that. So it'll give you as much RAM as it needs to keep the system running as smooth as it was last year. So if it needs 8, it'll get 8. If it only needs 6, it'll get 6. That's never been a spec sheet thing. They don't even tell you.
Right.
Because it's not important.
We find out after the teardowns take place.
Right. It's not like a Mac where it's like you get 8 and you can get 16. It's like, we're giving you what you need.
Yeah.
So the Pros might have 8. More recently, people said it was still 6. It doesn't matter. You'll have what you need in the Pro phones.
Okay. So we know iPhones next week.
Yeah.
Apple Watch. We've talked about this before.
We talked about this a little bit last week. So three models.
Yeah.
Series 8, 41, 45 millimeters, same as the 7. Not much in the way of changes from what we hear. Maybe a new sensor that tracks temperature, skin temperature, and kind of alerts you to you're 2 degrees higher this week. Maybe you're getting sick. Female fertility is another way that that can be tracked because temperatures run higher. but not something where you can just like tap your watch and see, what's my temperature today. Like it's not going to work like that. Otherwise, maybe a couple new colors, but nothing really groundbreaking in the Series 8, which, Jason Cross reviewed the 7 last year. And the changes there were it got a slightly bigger screen, 1 millimeter, and faster charging, which, and he posited that, maybe Apple doesn't need to update it every year. And that certainly seems to be the case. I don't know if they need a new one, but then again, if it's the same price, who cares? Okay, so come out with a new one. That's fine. Yeah. New colors, refresh the line. Probably start at $399 just like it does now. I don't see any reason to change that. The 7 is a great watch. The 8 will be a great watch. I mean, they are so far ahead when it comes to wearables that it's not even like they could take 3 years off and still be ahead of everybody else.
Well, but don't you think anything they did there would be overshadowed by the mythical Apple Watch Pro anyway? That's going to
So that's all right. So before we get there, Apple Watch SE, SE2. So the SE came out 2 years ago, $279. At the time, it was an Apple Watch 4 body, so bigger screen, 40 and 44 millimeters. No always-on display, no ECG, no blood oxygen. It didn't have any of those advanced sensors or features, but it was a good watch at a good price. So the SE2 didn't come out last year, so this has been out for 2 years, and they're saying that it's going to come out this year, probably based on the Series 5, which means you'll get an always-on display, which is great. Maybe ECG, maybe I don't know if they can do that cost effective. It's not important if they can't, because that's really a higher end feature anyway.
Yeah.
The price is the question. So right now it's $279, which is nice, but there's a $199 option in this Series 3. Which has hung on for way too long. That's presumably going away. It doesn't get watchOS 9. Apple, in good conscience, I mean, they can't sell it for another year if it's on an old operating system.
No.
That'd be crazy. So that's gone. The question I have is, do they lower the price of the SE? Do they keep the SE1 around at $199 and lower that price and then have this at $299 and then the other one at $399? So I don't know. Or maybe they just abandon the $199 tier altogether and start it at $279 like it does now. We'll have to see about that. But a new SE, nothing groundbreaking, but it'll be if it has an always-on display, a slightly faster chip. That's a really compelling watch for $279.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right now, the biggest issue in my mind is the lack of an always-on display, because that means that when you're wearing it, unless you raise it to your wrist, it's black.
Yeah.
The always-on display makes it into a watch. There's always something showing on the screen. It still gets the same battery life. That would be a very compelling purchase for someone looking for an entry-level smartwatch. The Apple Watch Pro now, like that could be like the big announcement.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they're saying that could be a one more thing announcement. One more thing, I might be wrong, but I don't think they've used a one more thing since the iPhone 10. Right? I don't think so.
I think of what it would be. I can't think of anything.
The Apple Watch was one, but that was before the iPhone 10, I think. That was the iPhone. That was the 6, or 6S maybe. I think iPhone 10 was the last time they used that. So they use it sparingly. If that's gonna be a one more thing announcement, that's a big deal for Apple. So the Apple Watch Pro, expected to be bigger, somewhat significantly so, 48, 50, 49, 50 millimeters, 1.9 inches, 1.99 inches to be exact. That's big.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger battery life because they got more space, a longer battery life. Maybe like a rugged. They keep calling it rugged. I'm not 100% sure what that means, because titanium, they sell a titanium watch now. That's pretty rugged.
Yeah.
Titanium is a very, very hard metal. So I don't know exactly what that means, styling and material wise, but rumors say that it will be a rugged watch aimed at like extreme athletes, like hikers, mountain climbers,
rock
climbers, people like that who will have a reason to have a watch that lasts a couple of days. a big watch that does, shows more stuff on your wrist because, with the bigger watch comes more complications and bigger watch faces. It's also going to have a big price,
Yeah.
probably $900 or $1,000 to start.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's expensive. The rumors say it's going to take the place of the Apple Watch Edition, which right now starts at $800. So it's expensive. It's bigger, it's different, but it's going to be like the first time Apple really differentiates the line with something totally new. It's not just going to be a bigger version of the Series 8. It's going to be a different and bigger version of the Series 8. They say, some people say it might even have its own look, like a flatter screen, slightly different design than the Series 8 as well.
Okay.
So it's interesting. That's definitely not for me, and I think it's definitely not for a lot of people.
It might be for me. I'm very interested in that. Yeah. I mean, not that I'm an extreme athlete, but I'd still like to that's the sort of thing that
I don't think you have to be an extreme. People buy things for.
I know. Well, I just wanted to be very clear that I was interested because aesthetics more than extreme athletes. Before we wrap up, there's no other hardware announcements we're thinking of, right?
Maybe AirPods Pro.
Okay.
Maybe.
Do you think, back up for 1 second in terms of the Apple Watch Pro, do you think that Apple, when it does the rollout, will do the phone first and then the Apple Watch stuff so it can do the one more thing at the end?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a question of how these things are set, how these keynotes are set up. But yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Do the phone and then have the next section be the watch. It would be weird to have the watch, phone, and then, oh, by the way, here's another watch.
Exactly. That's why I was like, yeah. Okay. All right.
So that's my guess, but who knows? They go through. I can't even imagine how many different versions of the script and stuff that they go through. I'm sure they started working on this thing in May. That
that thing's probably already in the can. They're ready.
For sure by now.
They're ready to roll.
I'm sure they go through different things. They cut stuff out. Product doesn't launch, changes. AirPods Pro, just to back up again.
Yeah.
They've been rumored for a year and a half. It's been 3 years. Almost 3 years since the AirPods Pro came out. It was October 2019. Interestingly, that didn't have an event. They just popped up on Apple's website one day. So they might not come out here, and they might, maybe in early October, Apple will just say, oh, here's the new AirPods Pro. It doesn't seem to be much in the way of major changes. There was heavy rumors that they were getting a redesign, and now not so much. So I don't know, but they have to come out this fall because 3 years is a long time between refresh, especially for a popular product like that. So slightly better noise canceling, slightly better battery life, maybe Bluetooth 5.2, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing groundbreaking. The new design it would fit flush in the ear if Apple does that. But now people are saying nah, they're still going to have stems. So
okay. Well, we know we're getting the iPhone. We know we're getting the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And maybe on the AirPods Pro. Okay. Well, I feel like at this point I'm well steeped in what we think is coming, and what we think is not coming.
I'm also curious to see how they're going to do this event. So they invited people to Apple Park. I don't know if it's a full stage event or if it's another thing where they introduce it and then they run the video and then they come back. I don't know. They did that at WWDC. They just kind of gathered people to watch the event.
Right.
But now they actually invited journalists. So there'll definitely be a hands-on thing, which they did at WWDC. But I don't know if they'll do a virtual presentation or if Tim Cook and company are going to actually be on the stage. We'll find out. Don't know.
Yeah, I hope it's virtual. Invite the crowd, roll the show, applause at the end, and then rather than applause all the way through.
Yeah, well, I mean, if Cook comes out, says a couple words, and then runs the tape, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that would work for me. Okay, so Wednesday, September 7th, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah,
and we'll see what they announce, and we'll see how right or wrong we are next time we do this.
I'm pretty confident that this is what we're getting.
Okay.
There's another event in October for Macs and iPads. Maybe a surprise. I mean, all right. Here's. I know we're way over, but far out, right? That would be a perfect tagline to unveil that AR headset.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a wild card in my mind. We don't know when or if that's coming out. We do know Apple's been working on it for a while.
That would be a hell of a one more thing.
Yeah, there's been rumors that it was coming out in late 2022, maybe early 2023, so they could like preview it now and ship it in like the middle of next year.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. If that happens, I'm quitting because I have way too much to do then.
Yeah, no, you won't. You won't. All right, Michael. All right, awesome. Thanks, for the insights, and thanks for watching. We'll be curious to see what you think is the big announcement at the Far Out event. So leave a comment if you've got questions. You can leave us a question in the comments. If you're looking at us on the LinkedIn page, be sure to check the YouTube page and subscribe to the show so you know when we're back. And next time we appear, like I say, we'll figure out what we did right and what we got wrong.